Hi, hello, and welcome to Learnstroke's PIB Code, the Press Information Bureau summary analysis for civil services, prelims, as well as mains. So let's check out the important news items in set 4 of September 2021. GS paper 2 and 3 perspective. It talks about international relations, energy, prelims, and FTQ. The US India Strategic Clean Energy Partnership, the SCEP. The news item was the ministerial meeting of the US India Strategic Clean Energy Partnership, which is SCEP. This can be very important for your mains as well as your prelims perspective, because you might even get a question: which of the following statements regarding SCEP are correct? So you can use it as a fact question, you can use it as an FTQ, facts to quote in the mains perspective. So basically you should understand that whenever there is an article related to energy, and that too clean energy, that is very important for UPSC, because biofuels, emerging fuels, renewable energy is a burning topic for civil service preparation. So US India strategic partnership, you can also use it as a international relations perspective between India and United States of America. So there are both sides involved in this, and they talk about clean energy. This article talks about clean energy and what are the 5 pillars of SCEP. This can be a prelims question also. Which of the following are the 5 pillars of SCEP? And it talks about low carbon pathways and emerging fuels, and it also talks about the biogas and biofuel task force. And what do you mean by PACE? PACE. We have to find out answers to all these questions. So let's quickly find out what are the pillars. What do you mean by PACE? So it is between India and USA. The Strategic Clean Energy Partnership is there. It's actually launched in accordance with US India Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030. So that is something worth remembering. Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030. So the whole process is a part of this. And both sides, Joe Biden and Narendra Modi are involved in this. So it's an intergovernmental engagement. So the whole thing is an intergovernmental engagement and has got 5 important pillars. They are power and energy efficiency, responsible oil and gas, renewable energy, sustainable growth, and recently the 5th one was added, which is called as emerging fuel. Very, very important. Emerging fuels are important in this regard. So let's quickly move on to the other important area, which talks about using vocabulary is very important for main. So low carbon pathways. It will create a low carbon pathways. And the 5th pillar is emerging fuel. And we also talked about India-US task force on biofuel. So know what you mean by a biofuel. What are the, you might even get a question for prelims also. Which of the following are important features of biofuels? How is biofuels made? So fine, when you hear biofuels, you have to be very thorough on biofuels. And what is India's renewable energy target by 2030? It is 450 gigawatt. Such questions can appear in the prelim statement questions. India's renewable energy target is 450 gigawatt by 2030. And there is also India-US Low Emission Gas Task Force and India Energy Modeling Forum. All these are important, okay? India Energy Modeling Forum, and it also includes smart grid and grid storage. When you talk about the concept of energy, please remember smart grid and grid storage, and we talk about the concept of PACE. What do you mean by PACE? Partnership to Advance Clean Energy Initiative. On the Indian side, it is taken by the Department of Science and Technology. So PACE, the energy modeling forums, India's renewable energy targets, all these are very, very important in this perspective. So remember the Clean Energy Partnership, which is the Strategic Clean Energy Partnership, SCEP. It can be very important for your exam. Moving on to the next important news item is the Prime Minister chairs the 13th BRICS Summit. And the news being the 13th BRICS Summit. So whenever you hear the BRICS, it is very, very important from the perspective of GS paper 2 international relations, and from a prelims perspective, which of the following statements regarding BRICS are true? Which of the following events regarding BRICS are true? You have to have a great idea about all those concepts, and from a mains perspective, definitely yes. FTQ, What are the facts to quote here? And in this summit, they talk about a motto, they talk about a theme of the BRICS summit, and they talk about a few first of its kind plans, summits which the BRICS is planning. So let's quickly check it out for facts to quote. The BRICS, the theme chosen by India, the theme of the summit chosen by India was BRICS at 15, intra-BRICS cooperation, and remember that is the most three important C's: continuity, consolidation, and consensus. So such words are good FTQ, for facts to quote. You can definitely use it. This can be prelims questions also. Continuity, consolidation, and consensus. So that is what we have discussed here. And they talk about the first BRICS Digital Health Summit. And they talk about a counter-terrorism action plan of BRICS. So BRICS Digital Health Summit, BRICS Counter-Terrorism Action Plan, and there is also going to be the BRICS Remote Sensing Forum. There is going to be a cooperation on remote sensing satellites. So BRICS Remote Sensing Satellites and BRICS Alliance on Green Tourism. So lot of alliances on BRICS Green Tourism, Counter-Terrorism Plan, Remote Sensing Satellites Plan, Digital Health Summit, and the BRIC Corporation also called for a motto. Such words, vocabulary is very important. Build back resiliently, innovatively, credibly, and sustainably. That is a word I am adding here. Build back resiliently, innovatively, credibly, and sustainably. Those words can come out very handy. And at the end of the summit, they also signed the New Delhi Declaration, so which is very cleanly, obviously, in the news. They talk about maintaining the peace and order on the Afghan issue. So maintaining that peace is very important. So they also adopted the New Delhi Declaration. So important vocabularies to study from the 13th BRICS Summit. And moving on to the next important news item is GS Paper 3, Security of India, the defense, and obviously question for the prelims and FTQ. MRSAM will prove to be a game changer, because the news was DRDO hands over defense missile system to Indian Air Force, which is called as MRSAM. That means the medium range surface to air missile can be a game changer. So such missiles questions are always favorite topics of UPSC, and let's find out how it is important. And yes, they talk about, and what is this collaboration? This whole collaboration that we are talking about, MRSAM, will be a collaboration between India and Israel. So again, from two countries' perspective, Israel is also helping DRDO for a long time to create great missiles in India. So this is also a bilateral relation is also involved in this. And it is a network-centric air defense system. And you know, medium-range surface-to-air missile was created. And the minister said, creating such things in India is a classic testimony of Atmanirbhar Bharat. So please remember the concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat also. And let's check out the specifications of this. This MRSAM has the potential to neutralize ground ascents and any threats, including fighter aircrafts, the unidentified vehicles and air vehicles, aerial vehicles, helicopters, guided and unguided munitions, subsonic and supersonic cruise missiles, etc. can be neutralized by this MRSAM. And it has a range of 70 kilometers. That is it. So the missile is powered by a rocket motor and control system for high maneuverability during the terminal phase. So 70-kilometer range, it has got the potential to neutralize many threats on the ground and the air. So please remember, MRSAM can be handy for your prelims and mains. The next news item regarding GS paper 2 and 4 relating to education and educational institutions, prelims and FTQ perspective, they talk about India rankings 2021. Because you know, Union Education Minister releases India rankings 2021. That means various universities, institutions in India are ranked on the basis of some parameters. What are those parameters? Because in this context, you should importantly know what do you mean by NIRF, because it is the 6th time such a ranking is actually coming. So the institutions, universities are ranked on the basis of what parameters? And what is NIRF? This is something that we have to know in this regard from a prelims perspective and to quote from mains perspective. So anyway, a robust and role model ranking system is very important for India because that determines the growth and progress of universities and institutions in India. And the new education policy also mandates that we need to have an international education system. So this is our 6th consecutive edition of India rankings, and the first one being in 2016. And please remember NIRF, the National Institutional Ranking Framework, launched in 2015 by the Ministry of Education. So they have been using this ranking system, and as I said, different universities, institutions are ranked on the basis of the parameters, the 5 major parameters: teaching, learning and resources, research and professional practice, graduational outcomes, outreach and inclusivity, and perception. So what if you get a question for prelims? Which of the following are true regarding the India rankings, or India rankings are based on which of the following parameters: teaching, learning, resources, research and professional practice, graduation outcomes, outreach and inclusivity, and perception. So please remember this, the concept of NIRF and India Rankings 2021. You might read the institutions and name of the colleges which you like, but before that, make sure that you read the big list. And moving on to the next important news item from GS paper 2 and 3, government schemes, technology, facts for prelims and facts to quote. This is a new concept called as MABI Digital 3.0. What do you mean by MABI Digital 3.0? It's a special campaign for digital onboarding and training for street vendors in India. So digital onboarding process has been discussed. That is what is called as the MABI Digital 3.0. And when you read about this article, they talk about an important scheme called as the Prime Minister Swanidhi. That means it is a loan, a collateral-free loan which is given to street vendors for developing their small businesses. So let's find out all this MABI Digital 3.0. What do you mean by this? And from the perspective of government schemes and technology integration, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs has launched this, called MABI Digital 3.0. It's a special campaign for digital onboarding and training for street vendors under Prime Minister Swanidhi, which was the Prime Minister's Street Vendor Atmanirbhar Nidhi, was launched in 2020. And what do you mean by the scheme? The scheme facilitates affordable working capital loans which are collateral free to the street vendors with a minimal nominal interest rate. So this is what is called as the MABI Digital 3.0. So please read it from the perspective of Prime Minister Swanidhi. You can get as a question for prelims, and you can even use it as a FTQ for mains answer writing also. Whenever you get street vendors, etc., you can definitely quote this. And we discussed about the clean energy, and now again we have energy. GS paper 3, energy perspective, methanol. They talk about the high ash coal gasification for methanol. So that might sound a big concept, because the news was India's first indigenously designed high ash coal gasification based methanol production is being discussed here. So when you have a news like this, we have to take a lot of important areas for your prelims as well as mains perspective. So basically in this, you have to know what you mean by the concept of methanol. You know, methanol can be used as a fuel. That is very popular. Methanol can be used as a fuel, and it also talk about DME. It also talk about methanol DME. It's also popular and very similar to diesel. It's very similar to diesel, and with a small modification, it can also be used as a fuel also. So methanol is always in the news. Know how methanol is created, and in the international industrial production, normally what happens is when you have to create methanol on the large scale basis, you need natural gas. And with natural gas, the process is very simple. But the problem is the availability of natural gas. When you talk about from India's perspective, India doesn't have that much kind of a natural gas reserve in India. So India depends on a large import of natural gas. So when you have import of natural gas, India cannot depend on that natural gas to completely use it. What if we start using the natural gas which is imported? to create methanol. So that will leak out a lot of foreign exchange from India. That will going to be an economic disaster. So the only option was not natural gas, the only option was coal. Coal was the only process, and that is why coal gasification is also discussed here. With coal, the high ash coal gasification, you can produce the methanol that you want. So because of the high ash content in the Indian coal. So this is the whole article. Let's quickly find out the quick facts for that. Yes, methanol is used as a motor fuel, and the DME, the dimethyl ether, it's a DME, it's a liquid fuel very similar to diesel. It can also be a substitute for diesel. And I told you India doesn't have big natural gas reserves, so you have to import it. When you import it, you cannot make it for methanol production. So that is not a viable option. So the only option was abundant coal. India has the abundant coal, and due to the high ash percentage of Indian coal, this can be used to create the methanol, and the Indian high ash coal gasification process is used to produce around 0.25 ton per day methanol. So that is a good solution which the government is actually suggesting here. So high ash coal gasification can be a good solution in this regard. And what do you mean by coal gasification generally? So from a prelims perspective, know the uses of methanol, and what do you mean by the coal gasification? What is the process of gasification itself? So the coal gasification is the process of converting coal into synthesis gas, which is called as the syngas, which is a mixture of carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and a mixture of hydrogen. So remember all this concept of syngas, gasification, coal gasification, high ash coal gasification, and the functions of methanol from GS paper 1 natural resources and science and technology. You can ask this question, you can get this question on science and technology, and facts for prelims, all the aspects that we have discussed. So please try to find it out. So that was today's PIB code. I hope you really enjoyed the session, and again, subscribe the channel for more such current affairs video, and definitely, as usual, tell your UPSC preparing friends so that they can also get the current affairs. So thank you so much. You're listening to PIB Code, and this is Arjun R. Shaankar.